The strange silence in the cabin. Daniel walked up the narrow path to his mountain cabin. The evening sky behind him was painted with soft orange and deep purple. The cold air of the mountains touched his face, and he felt the quiet around him. Like a heavy blanket, yet something about this silence was not the silence he remembered. It was deeper, heavier, almost alive, and it made him slow his steps. He pushed open the wooden door. The hinges gave a small creak, and the smell of old wood and pine rushed out to greet him. But Daniel stopped in the doorway, his eyes moving over the small cabin he had built with his own hands. Something was different. The air felt disturbed, like someone had been breathing in his private space, his safe place in the mountains, and the thought made his heart beat faster. He placed his bag on the table. But the table had scratches that had not been there before. Small thin marks like something sharp had brushed across it. He moved his hand over the marks, and a chill ran down his arm. The cabin was supposed to be untouched, yet here it looked like someone had been inside, walking, touching, maybe even living. Daniel looked at the shelves where his jars of beans and rice were lined up. 2 jars were lower than the rest. One was lighter, and when he picked it up, he saw that half the food was gone. His eyes narrowed, his mind raced with questions. Had a bear broken in? Had a thief found his cabin? Or was it something else entirely? Something he could not name. He walked through each corner of the cabin, his boots pressing on the wooden floor. The boards creaked in reply, but the creaks did not match the silence that hung in the room. It was almost as if the cabin was listening to him, waiting for him to see what had been hidden, waiting for him to notice that he was not alone that night. Daniel lit a small fire. The glow filled the room, but the shadows that danced on the walls looked too sharp, too alive, and his eyes kept darting to the corners where the firelight could not reach. He heard small shifts, like cloth brushing against wood, like feet that tried to be silent but could not hold still forever. His breath slowed, his ears straining. And then the sound vanished. He climbed into bed, pulling the blanket up to his chest. His hunting knife rested on the table next to him. He had never felt the need to keep it so close before, but tonight was different. His heart told him something was wrong, and his thoughts would not let him sleep. They turned again and again to the missing food, the scratches on the table, the sound of movement in the dark at midnight. He opened his eyes again. The fire had burned low, leaving the cabin filled with half shadow, half ember glow, and there, near the window, he thought he saw a figure move, a soft outline, slender and quick. But when he sat up, it was gone. The curtain swayed slightly, as if touched by a hand or a breath, and his skin grew cold. Daniel rose slowly, knife in hand, and walked to the window. He pulled the curtain back. But there was nothing outside except the tall black trees and the pale moon. Still, the sense of being watched would not leave him. He could feel eyes on him, eyes from somewhere inside the cabin, eyes that did not belong to him. He turned back to the room, his chest tight, and whispered to the silence, "Who is here?" His voice shook the air, and for a moment he thought the silence grew even deeper, like the cabin itself was holding its breath, waiting. Then he heard the faintest sound. Above him, a creak in the attic, so light it might have been imagination, but he knew it was not. Something was moving where no one should be. He climbed the narrow ladder to the attic, his knife ready. The wood groaned under his weight. The small space above was dark, filled with old boxes and dust. Yet he saw nothing, only the beam of his lantern cutting across cobwebs and rough wood. But the smell was there, a scent that was not his, soft and strange, like wildflowers mixed with something metallic, something unearthly. Daniel lowered the lantern, his breath trembling, and for the first time in years he felt true fear inside his cabin, fear that was not from animals or storms or hunger, but from the unknown, from the certainty that someone or something had been hiding in the shadows of his home, and that it was still here, waiting, watching. Breathing quietly just beyond his side, he returned to his bed. The cabin seemed even smaller. The silence pressed harder on his ears, and sleep would not come. Instead, he lay awake, staring into the darkness, wondering if, when his eyes closed, the figure would step forward, wondering if, by morning, he would finally see what was living in his cabin. And dreading the truth that it might not be human at all, the woman in the shadows, Daniel sat by the dim fire. His eyes heavy, but his mind sharp. Every creak of the cabin made him lift his head. Every shift of the wind outside made his chest tighten. He could not shake the feeling that someone was inside with him. Hidden and waiting, he had spent years in this mountain home and knew every sound. Yet tonight, everything felt different. Strange, alive in ways it should not, as the first light of dawn slid across the window. Daniel rose from his chair and moved quietly. He decided he could not live with only fear and questions. He had to know the truth. He had to see with his own eyes what was hiding. And why it was inside his cabin, he planned carefully. Remembering how he once caught foxes that stole chickens, pretending to leave but never really leaving, he put on his heavy boots, grabbed his old rifle, and stepped out into the crisp mountain air. The forest stretched wide around him, filled with tall pines and the sound of a stream far below. He walked a short distance down the trail, making sure his steps were loud enough for anyone inside the cabin to hear. Then he stopped and waited, hidden behind a thick tree, his breath clouding in the morning air. The minutes passed slowly. The forest calm, until Daniel heard it. A soft creak of his cabin door opening. His heart jumped, and he leaned around the tree. Eyes locked on the cabin. The door moved slightly, and for a brief moment, he saw something slip through. Not a bear, not a man, but a figure that moved with grace, too smooth for human steps. Too fast for eyes to hold, he returned quietly, rifle ready, and when he entered the cabin again, he found nothing. Yet the air told him someone had been there. The curtain swayed gently, though the window was closed, and on the wooden floor there was a faint print, narrow and light, unlike any boot or bare foot he had ever seen. He knelt and touched it. The wood felt cold, as if the touch had drained warmth from it that night. He tried again, but this time he hid inside, slipping into the shadows near the corner. The fire low so that the cabin was filled with half dark, his breathing slow, his body still as stone. He waited for hours until his eyes began to ache, and then at last he saw it. A figure moving from the attic ladder down into the room, slender, quiet, almost floating. Daniel gripped his knife, ready to rise, but then he froze. Because the figure was not what he expected. It was a woman, her form graceful, her hair long and dark. Yet her eyes were unlike any he had seen, faintly glowing, like the stars outside. Her skin shimmered as though touched by moonlight. She stepped across the room, unaware of him. Moving like she belonged to another world entirely, he rose slowly, his boot making a small creak. And the woman turned, her glowing eyes locking onto his. Her face froze in fear, her body pressed against the wall as if she wanted to vanish into it. Daniel lifted his hand, palm open, to show he meant no harm, his voice rough yet soft as he spoke. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The woman did not answer with her mouth. Yet Daniel heard a whisper inside his head, soft and trembling. "Do not be afraid, I will not harm you." The sound was not sound at all. It was thought, words inside his mind, and it made his knees weak. He had never known such a thing was possible. His knife slipped from his hand and landed on the floor with a dull thud. Daniel's breath came heavy, his heart hammering. He wanted to ask more, but the woman moved quickly, climbing back to the attic. Her glowing eyes, the last thing he saw. Before the shadows swallowed her again, he stood frozen, the echo of her voice still in his head. Her words circling again and again. "Do not be afraid." The cabin now felt smaller than ever, filled with questions he could not answer. What was she? Why had she hidden here? And why could she speak without sound? He sat down heavily, staring at the ceiling, knowing she was above him, listening, watching, waiting. His world had shifted. What he thought was impossible now breathed in the same air as him he wanted to. Leave, to run down the mountain and never return. But something inside him told him to stay, told him this mystery was not danger alone. It was something more, something he had to understand, and though fear gripped him, a strange pull grew in his chest, a pull toward the woman in the shadows, the woman who was not human. As the night deepened, Daniel lay awake, his eyes on the attic ladder, waiting for her to return, waiting for answers, wondering if she would trust him or if she would vanish forever. The silence of the cabin pressed on him once more, but now it was not empty silence. It was silence alive with presence, silence shared with a being who should not exist, silence heavy with the promise that his life would never be the same again. Secrets of the alien woman. The morning came slowly in the mountains, thin light sliding through the cracks of the cabin walls. Daniel sat at the table with his hands tight together, his eyes on the attic ladder. He had not slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard her voice in his head, soft and strange, telling him not to be afraid. And the sound of it both comforted him and unsettled him deeply. He poured himself a cup of water, but his hands shook. He knew she was still there above him, hiding in the shadows, watching him from the darkness. He felt it in the air, a soft weight that was not his own. Finally, he spoke quietly, though he was not sure she would hear him. "You can come down. I will not hurt you. I only want to understand." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a soft sound came, light steps on wood. The attic ladder creaked as the figure appeared again. Slow and careful, her eyes glowed faintly in the dim morning. And when Daniel saw her clearly this time, his breath caught. She looked almost human, but not fully. Her skin was pale with a shimmer-like light moving across water, and her eyes seemed to hold the whole night sky inside them. Daniel stood, but did not move closer. Afraid she might run, he kept his voice calm, asking her name. And again her lips did not move, but her voice came into his mind, clear and gentle. "My name is Illyra. I come from far beyond your world. I did not mean to frighten you. I only wanted to survive." His chest tightened at those words. Survive? He asked what she meant, and she lowered her head, her long hair falling across her shoulders like dark silk. "I crashed here many nights ago, my vessel broken, my body hurt. I did not know if your kind would welcome me or destroy me, so I stayed hidden, taking only what I needed, hoping to heal and escape." Her thoughts flowed into him like a stream, smooth and heavy with sorrow. Daniel studied her arms, and for the first time he noticed the faint lines across her skin, scars that glowed softly as if the wounds were not natural. He stepped closer but slow, his hand lifted, asking with his eyes if he could see. She gave a small nod, and he touched the scars lightly. They felt cool, almost metallic, yet living at the same time. It made him shiver. This was no sickness or cut, he understood. It was something far beyond. Human. Illyra lifted her gaze again, her glowing eyes steady now. "I have been afraid. But you did not chase me away. You did not strike me when you saw me. You asked who I was, and that is why I chose to speak to you." Her voice in his head grew steadier, like she was gaining strength with every word she shared. Daniel felt his mind spinning. He wanted to deny it, to say this was a dream. But the truth was standing in front of him, breathing, speaking without sound, glowing softly in his small wooden cabin. The world he knew seemed to stretch wide and break, revealing something far greater than he had ever imagined. He asked her if more of her kind would come looking, and Illyra's face grew tight with fear. Her answer came sharp. "No, they must not find me." If they do, I will not live. I broke the rule of my people. I came here without order. I fled from them. They will not forgive me. They will hunt me until I am gone." Her words sank heavy into Daniel's chest, and he felt anger rise. Anger that someone would hunt her only for trying to live, yet also fear. Fear that danger might come to his mountain home. Fear that by helping her, he was placing himself in a storm he could not control. But when he looked at her trembling hands, at the pain in her glowing eyes, he knew he could not turn away. The fire crackled between them. And Daniel spoke with firm voice. "You are safe here. I will not give you away. No one comes here but me. No one will find you if I can help it." His words were plain but strong, and for the first time since he had seen her, Illyra gave a faint smile, small and fragile, yet it lit her strange face with warmth still. The peace did not last, because outside the cabin a sound rose. A low hum that did not belong to the forest, a mechanical thrum that made the glass of the window shake. Daniel turned sharply, his rifle in hand. Illyra's eyes went wide with terror. "They have come," she whispered into his mind. "They are searching." Already Daniel felt the hair rise on his neck as the sound moved closer. Glowing red lights flickered between the trees, like eyes of something not alive but made to hunt. His grip on the rifle tightened, and Illyra stepped back toward the attic, her voice trembling inside his mind. "If they find me here, they will destroy you too. You must send me away." But Daniel shook his head, his voice steady with fire. "No, we face them together." The sound grew louder. Shaking the cabin walls, the silence that once haunted Daniel was gone, replaced with the heavy march of machines searching the forest, and as the night fell once more, he knew his mountain home would never again be the safe and lonely place it once was. It had become a battlefield, and at its center stood a human and an alien woman bound by fear, trust, and a growing spark of something neither of them could yet name: the hunters in the forest. Red lights moved slowly between the dark trees. Glowing like eyes that never blinked, Daniel stood frozen near the window, his rifle heavy in his hands, his breath sharp in his chest. Beside him, Illyra trembled, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Her voice rushed into his head like a whisper. "Carried on wind, they are close, too close. They will not stop until they find me." Daniel wanted to ask what they were, but he already knew by the weight in her voice. They were not animals and not men. They were machines, sent to hunt her, sent to erase her. His cabin that once felt strong and safe now felt small and fragile, like a wooden box in the path of a storm. Still, he did not step back. His heart refused to abandon hearth. Sound grew louder, a steady hum mixed with heavy steps that crushed branches underfoot. Daniel blew out the lantern so the cabin was swallowed in darkness. The only light came from the faint fire and the glow of Illyra's eyes. She whispered inside his mind, "They can sense heat and movement. If you stay still, they may pass." But her words carried doubt, and he saw the truth in her trembling hands. They would not pass. They would come for her. Daniel guided her toward the corner of the cabin. Crouching low, he whispered with voice not steady, "If they come through that door, we fight." And Illyra shook her head, her voice inside his mind stronger now. "You cannot fight them. They are stronger than you." But Daniel only gripped his rifle tighter, his jaw firm. "I do not care. This is my home. And you are not alone." The first machine came into view outside the window, tall and thin, with metal limbs that bent too many ways, its eyes glowing red like burning coals. It scanned the cabin slowly, beams of red light slicing across the wood. Daniel held his breath. Illyra clutched her arm, and the machine's steps creaked closer. It pressed a long claw against the wall, dragging lines into the wood, testing, searching for a moment. Daniel thought it might move on, But then the machine tilted its head and the red light swept across the room. Landing on Elira's glowing eyes, she gasped, and the sound was enough. The machine screeched, a sharp metallic cry, and raised its limbs to strike. Daniel fired his rifle. The sound thundered through the cabin. The bullet struck the machines. Sighed, sparks flew, but it did not fall. It turned toward him with rage in its red eyes. Elira lifted her hands. Light burst from her skin like waves of energy, striking the machine and throwing it back against the wall. Wood shattered. Smoke rose from its chest. Yet, even wounded, it crawled forward, limbs clicking, claws reaching. Daniel reloaded fast. Sweat on his brow, his heart a drum. He fired again and again. Each shot sending sparks into the dark, each shot slowing the metal beast but not ending it. The cabin shook with every strike of the machine. Boards splintered, shelves fell, jars crashed to the floor. Elira's glow filled the room brighter now, her face set with fierce fire. She pushed her hands forward and the energy roared like lightning. The machine screamed as its chest split open, gears twisting and burning. Finally, it collapsed in a heap. Smoke curling into the air, its red eyes dimming until they were nothing. But Black Glass Daniel stood panting, his rifle nearly empty. Elira dropped to her knees, her glow fading as sweat lined her face. She was weak, trembling, yet alive. Daniel rushed to her side, lifting her gently. His voice steady, though his body shook. "We did it. We stopped it." But Elira shook her head with tired sorrow, her words in his mind like a low echo. "This was only one. More will come. Stronger, faster, endless, until I am gone." Daniel felt the truth of her words sink into him like ice. He looked at the broken wall, the wreck of the machine smoking on his floor. His safe home was ruined, his quiet life shattered. Yet inside his chest he felt no thought of surrender. Instead, he felt fire, a determination born of fear and care. He would not give her up. Not now, not ever. Together, they moved through the wreckage. Gathering what little remained, Elira guided him, showing him weak points in the metal, how to break the claws, how to cut the wires that still sparked faintly. Her knowledge was unlike anything he had known. And though she swayed with exhaustion, she kept speaking into his mind, teaching him, preparing him. Because she knew more were coming, and they could not run forever. That night, Daniel did not sleep. He worked beside her to turn the cabin into something more. Not just a shelter, but a place of defense. He nailed boards over broken windows, set traps along the trail, sharpened wooden stakes, and kept his rifle close. Elira sat near the fire, her eyes dim, her body weak, yet her thoughts never left his mind, her voice guiding him, her presence filling him with strange comfort. Even in the face of terror outside, the forest was not silent anymore. The machines moved somewhere in the darkness, their hum drifting with the wind. Red lights flashing between the trees. Daniel stood at the doorway, staring into the night, his voice a whisper to himself. "Let them come. I will be ready." And behind him, Elira whispered back inside his thoughts, "We must be ready together." And so the mountain cabin that had once been a place of quiet retreat became the center of a storm. A battlefield waiting for the next strike. A wooden fortress holding not only a man and his rifle, but also a woman not of this world, a woman who carried secrets that could save or destroy them both. And though Daniel's heart still raced with fear, it now also burned with courage. Because he knew his fight had only just begun. Fight for survival. The night dragged on heavy and tense. Daniel stood near the broken wall with his rifle ready, his ears sharp for every sound outside. Elira sat near the fire, her glow faint and her hands shaking. She was weak from the battle, yet her eyes still burned with warning. Her voice pressed into his mind with soft urgency. "They will not stop. The one we destroyed was only the smallest. The next will be stronger." Daniel wanted to tell her to rest, to let him carry the weight, but he knew she was right. If the machines were endless, then both of them needed strength, not only his rifle, but also her strange power. Still, when he looked at her pale, trembling body, he felt a twist in his chest. She had risked herself to save him. She had fought for him. And now he could not imagine letting her fall. The silence outside did not last. Soon a heavy thump shook the ground, then another, each step like a hammer striking the earth. Daniel's heart pounded as he gripped his rifle tighter. Elira's glow brightened a little as she rose unsteady to her feet. Her thoughts reached him sharp and urgent. It has found us. This one will not fall as easy. We must fight together. The door trembled with the force of something massive outside. Then wood splintered as a huge claw punched through. The cabin shuddered, shelves crashed down. The machine tore its way inside, taller than the one before, thick armor glinting with red lines. Its eyes burned bright like molten fire. Its voice screeched in a sound that rattled Daniel's bones. This was not a hunter made to scare. It was a hunter made to kill. Daniel fired his rifle again and again, bullets striking sparks across the metal chest, but the machine barely slowed. It swung a heavy arm and smashed the table into pieces. Daniel rolled aside, the force of wind from the strike nearly knocking him off his feet. Elira lifted both hands. Light burst forward in a powerful wave, striking the machine and sending it staggering. Yet unlike the first one, it steadied fast and advanced again. The battle turned the cabin into ruin. Walls splintered, roof beams cracked, firewood scattered across the floor. Daniel fought with every shot, reloading with shaking hands. Elira burned with her glow, though each wave of energy left her weaker. Sweat lined her face, her body swayed. Still, she fought on, her voice inside Daniel's mind crying with fierce strength, "Do not give up. Stand with me." The machine lunged, its claws tearing across the floor where Daniel had stood. He leaped aside and thrust his hunting knife into a joint of the armor. Sparks exploded. The machine screeched, but its arm swung and sent him crashing against the wall. Pain shot through his chest, his vision blurred. Still, he forced himself to rise. Because if he stayed down, Elira would fall. Tulira cried out, her glow exploding brighter than before. A storm of light filled the cabin. Striking the machine's core, Daniel saw wires burning, gears twisting, but the machine pushed forward. Still, unstoppable, Daniel staggered to his feet and shouted, "Here! Over here!" Drawing its attention, it turned toward him, claws raised to end him. And in that instant, Elira's voice filled his mind like thunder. Now strike now with the last of his strength. Daniel grabbed a fallen axe from the floor. He charged forward and swung with every ounce of fury and fear. The blade crashed into the glowing core, where Elira's light had weakened the metal. Sparks roared, fire burst. The machine screamed and collapsed, shaking the cabin as it fell. Its red eyes dimmed into lifeless ash. The room fell silent except for Daniel's heavy breathing. He dropped the axe, his body trembling with pain and exhaustion. Elira collapsed to her knees, her glow flickering weakly. Daniel crawled to her side and held her, his voice shaking but firm. "We did it. We stopped it." But Elira's thoughts came faint and filled with sorrow. "No, you do not understand. This was not the last. This was only the second. The final hunter is still out there, greater than both combined. If it comes, we may not survive." Daniel felt a deep weight in his chest, yet he looked at her face, pale and weary, and his heart hardened with fire. He whispered close to her ear, "Then we will fight again. I will not leave you, not now, not ever." Elira's glowing eyes lifted to his, and for a moment her fear melted, replaced with something softer, trust, maybe even hope. They worked through the night, though their bodies ached, repairing what little they could, setting traps outside, sharpening tools. Preparing for the storm they knew was coming, Daniel wrapped Alira in blankets, giving her warmth, though she resisted, saying she must stay awake. But he shook his head firmly. "Rest, I will guard you." And after long silence, she obeyed. Her glow dimming as she drifted into fragile sleep, Daniel sat awake with rifle in hand, watching the ruined doorway where cold night air blew inside. Beyond the forest whispered with distant hums, faint but steady. Proof that the final hunter was moving closer. His heart pounded, yet his eyes stayed sharp, his mind repeating the same vow: no matter what comes, I will protect her, even if it costs me everything. And so the mountain cabin stood broken, yet alive. A fortress of wood and courage, inside it a human man scarred and bleeding, yet unbroken, and beside him an alien woman, weak, yet full of strange light. Together they had survived the storm, but outside the greatest storm still waited, its steps already echoing faint through the trees. Each one a promise that the fight was far from over. Last stand in the mountains, the air was cold and sharp as dawn broke across the mountains. Daniel stood at the doorway of the ruined cabin, his rifle tight in his hands, his eyes locked on the dark forest below. The silence was heavy, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of something waiting, something vast and merciless. And Daniel felt it pressing closer with every breath he took behind him. Alira stirred weakly under the blankets, her glow dim but steady. She lifted her head, and her voice pressed into his mind. Soft and trembling, "It is here. I can feel it. The last hunter, the strongest of them all." Daniel turned and saw the fear in her shining eyes. But he shook his head, his voice steady, though his body ached. "Then we meet it here. We do not run. We fight together." The ground trembled as a low hum spread across the forest. Birds burst from the trees in wild flocks. Branches cracked, the air shook with power. Daniel's breath caught as the final machine appeared through the fog. It was taller than any he had seen, its frame armored with thick black plates that glowed with red veins of light. Its eyes burned like fire, its limbs ending in blades and claws. It moved like a predator that could not be stopped. Daniel felt his knees weaken, but he forced himself to stand taller. Alira rose beside him, though her body trembled, her glow flickering brighter as she placed her hand on his arm. Her voice filled his mind: "If it kills you, it will take me. I cannot let that happen." Daniel looked at her, his heart pounding, and whispered with fierce fire, "Then neither of us falls. We end this together." The machine's voice tore across the valley, a scream of metal and thunder, and then it charged, its steps shaking the earth. Daniel fired his rifle, bullets sparking across its armor, but doing little to slow it. Alira lifted both hands and released a wave of light. The ground shook, the machine staggered but kept moving, its claws ripping into the cabin walls. Wood splintered as the roof collapsed, fire sparks flying into the air. Daniel pulled Alira back as beams of red energy cut through the floor where they had stood. He rolled behind the stone fireplace, his rifle empty now. He reached for the axe, his hands bleeding. Alira's glow burned brighter, her face pale but fierce. She sent blast after blast of light into the beast, each strike cracking its armor, yet each strike draining her strength. Her legs shook, her breath shallow. Still she did not stop. The machine swung its massive claw, striking Daniel and throwing him across the ground. Pain ripped through his side, his vision blurred, but he forced himself up, clutching the axe, his voice raw as he shouted, "Alira, now, give me the chance." Alira screamed with her mind and her body, her glow bursting into a blinding storm. The machine staggered, its chest plates splitting, its red veins sparking wildly. Daniel saw the opening. He ran with all the strength left in him. He leapt forward, swinging the axe down into the glowing core, Sparks exploded. Fire roared. The machine shrieked. Its limbs flailing, Daniel struck. Again and again, each blow fueled by pain and rage and the vow he had made. Illyra's light wrapped around him, guiding his hands, giving him the final strength. Together, they tore through the core until at last the machine collapsed. Shaking the mountain with its fall, its red eyes dimming into silence, Daniel fell to his knees. Chest heaving, blood on his hands, Illyra stumbled beside him, her glow fading fast. She collapsed into his arms, her voice in his mind faint like a whisper carried on wind. "We survived, but I have nothing left. My power is gone. If more come, I cannot fight." Daniel held her tighter, his voice rough but steady. "Then I will fight for both of us. You are not alone anymore. Not now. Not ever." Lyra lifted her gaze, her glowing eyes soft, filled with a light that was not only alien, but something more human. Trust, warmth, maybe even love. Daniel felt it burn in his chest, stronger than fear, stronger than pain. He whispered close, "You belong here now. If your people hunt you, then they will have to face me too, and I will never let them take youth." Forrest was silent again, but it was not the same silence that had greeted Daniel when he first returned to the cabin. This silence was heavy with change, heavy with promise. The cabin was broken, the roof torn, the walls scarred, yet inside its ruins stood a man and a woman from different worlds, bound together by survival, by courage, by something unspoken that grew stronger with every breath. Daniel stepped outside. The sun rising over the peaks, the sky painted gold and red. Illyra leaned against him, weak but alive, her glow faint yet steady. Together they looked at the endless forest, knowing dangers might still come, knowing her people might still send hunters, but neither of them felt fear. Because they had faced the worst and endured, and now they were no longer just a man and an alien. They were a team. A bond forged in fire and battleland, so the story of the lonely mountain cabin became something greater. No longer a place of silence and solitude. It had become a place of war, of discovery, and of connection. A place where two lives collided and changed forever. The man who once sought peace now found purpose, and the woman who once hid in fear now found trust. Together they walked back into the broken cabin, ready to rebuild, ready to face whatever came. Because in the end, they had already won the hardest battle of all, the battle to trust each other and to stand side by side against the darkness.